Thousands of men fought and died in the American Civil War, and the military and political leadership of the conflict was dominated by men. But women also played a pivotal role in the conflict, participating as nurses, soldiers, abolitionists, and more. The war was fought between the Union armies of the northern states and the Confederate forces of the South. On both sides of the conflict, American women took up arms, spied on their enemies, and treated the injured soldiers on the front lines. Here are 5 key roles women played in the American Civil War. Women in both Union and Confederacy rallied quickly to support their cause. Forming ladies' aid societies, they helped gather supplies for the troops, baking and canning food, sewing uniforms, fundraising for medical supplies and other necessities, and even serving as nurses. Through the women's effort, the federal government agreed to create the United States Sanitary Commission, which aimed to improve conditions like bad hygiene in the Army camps and hospitals. This commission would provide almost $15 million in supplies to the Union Army by the end of the war. One such volunteer was Louise May Alcott. In 1864, she began volunteering, first sewing uniforms and tending to minor soldiers' needs, and in years later officially enlisting as a Union nurse. Best known as the author of Little Women, Alcott gained valuable experience during the war that would inspire future writings. Many women who started volunteering to distribute supplies to the soldiers later enlisted as nurses to tend to the soldiers on the front lines. As nurses, both Northern and Southern women traveled from hospital to hospital, providing care for the sick, wounded, and dying. Clara Barton, known as the Angel of the Battlefield for her work tending to the soldiers on both sides of the battlefield, is one example of the Civil War nurse. Early in the war, she created the Ladies' Aid Society to distribute bandages, food, clothing, and in August of 1862, she was permitted to tend to the soldiers. Both Northern and Southern women served as spies during the war, perfect for the role as they were not seen as threatening and were easily trusted. It was known that soldiers would let their guard down around women, lured into a false sense of security as they were reminded of their mothers, wives, and children. Taking advantage of the social norms, women were able to gather information about their enemies' battle plans, troop size, supplies, and more. Most women volunteered as spies, though some were recruited. A famous Confederate spy was Rose O'Neal Greenhow, who volunteered in 1861. Her efforts revealed plans about the First Battle of Manassas, which ultimately became a Confederate victory. She ran her own spy network of 48 women and 2 men and used specific codes to send messages within it. Despite being exposed as a spy and pursued by the Union, she continued her work until her death in 1864, aboard a ship carrying $2,000 in gold she had raised in France and Britain for the Confederacy. She was buried with full military honors by the Confederacy. One of the main causes of the American Civil War was the issue of slavery, and many women took up the abolitionist cause long before the war. In 1852, Harriet Beecher Stowe published Uncle Tom's Cabin. To write the novel, she sought out first-hand accounts from enslaved people and was able to describe the national tension around the issue of slavery. After the war broke out, she met with Abraham Lincoln and continued to push him on this issue. Conventional depictions of women's roles during the Civil War ignore their contributions as frontline soldiers. Though it's difficult to estimate how many female soldiers there were in the Civil War, it's somewhere between 400 and 750. From the Battle of Shiloh to the Battle of Gettysburg, both Northern and Southern women impersonated men and fought for the same reasons that men did: adventure, constant and reliable pay, and patriotism. Because most soldiers in the war had little to no previous military experience, women were able to be trained alongside men, gaining the necessary skills without drawing any attention.